We continue the class discussing how we access joy, recognize who we really are, and using that as the tool. Hope you enjoy. If you can, please subscribe, share, and drop a like. Thank you so much. So the Rebbe now is going to move this person from his sadness, not so bad, the best of the worst, to Mariros. Hey, you're not even sad. It's godly. Not where we want to be, but godly to where we want to be, the joy. And the remainder of this chapter is going to focus on that movement toward joy, which we're going to start like in a second. And we're going to actually, over the course of the chapter, speak of 4 progressively higher levels of joy that the person can and should attain by thinking certain thoughts, putting a certain thought in your head. And if you really get into that thought, it produces a joy. And then let's ascend to the next level, and the next, and the next. Mariros is called like true sadness, because it's the only sadness whose reason is true. But we don't want to be in this true, godly version of the word sadness. We want to be actually in true joy. Dahainu means to say, Shazos yashiv libo. This is what you should tell yourself. In other words, these are thoughts to think. And this is, of course, very traditional Chabad Hasidic philosophy. Think the thoughts and the emotions will follow. So the thought we're thinking, Shazos yashiv libo. This is what he should tell himself. L'nachamo b'kiflayim, to comfort himself, a double comfort, like really intense comfort. After all of the above mentioned truth of his sad situation. Lemor l'libo, to tell himself, this is a script. Undoubtedly true, absolutely true. I am very far from God. Yes, I accept. In other words, remember, for this litany to make sense, why is a person so? He is a person that cares about his relationship with God. He was suffering from that stone-like heart. The way he cured himself, following the advice of the Alter Rebbe, was to think thoughts one way or another. We had 3 different strategies to emotionally break himself. So emotionally breaking himself, he thought thoughts that weren't very positive about himself. He thought about his very minor, this is quite a holy person, but each person can apply it to themselves. He thought about his flaws, his imperfections, what he was doing wrong, in a way that was really crushing to himself. So this emotionally shattering his heart, which shattered the evil that was gripping his heart, was really a process of very intense scrutiny, of really, really coming down on himself and really saying, you think you're holy? Because of course he did think he was holy, because of course he was holy. Really, you? Well, read the scripts. So it was a lot of emotionally bashing himself. So therefore, now to move to the world of joy, he says, listen, it's true. I'm very that's what I told myself. That's how I shattered the evil, because I shattered my heart. I'm saying stuff. It's true. I'm like really low, really despicable. Yeah, for sure. But that's my body. That's my animal energy. But that's not defining me. The definition of me, of the I of every single Jew, what makes a Jew, is a piece of God. You can be the most wonderful non-Jew. So wonderful isn't what makes a person Jewish. What makes a person Jewish is that piece of God, that soul, that is the definition of a Jew. That is the definitive characteristic of a Jew. So, however messed up I was and whatever I've done wrong, it's true. Of course. We could add a lot more than this guy can. But that's all the other stuff. That's all the appendages. What's me? I'm a piece of God. And you remember, this is like the foundational idea starting in chapter 1 of Tanya. This is like the whole mind shift that the Alter Rebbe began Tanya with. Look at yourself and understand you're a piece of God. Because if you really look at yourself and understand you're a piece of God, you will look at yourself completely differently. So anything that's getting me down, that's the appendage, that's the body, that's the animal. My truest I, is a piece of God. I mean, I know it's in me because it's in every single Jew, the lowest Jew. He's a Jew. He has this piece of God inside of him. And as Hasidah says, the essence of the Jew is actually the essence of she nefesh halukis, my godly soul. It needs its elokus mamish hamalubashba, with that piece of God that's literally her core, not just godly, God. That's what vivifies the soul, that piece of God which vivifies the soul, which then vivifies the animal, which then vivifies the body. It all goes back to the piece of God. It's in a heavy-duty exile, and that's why I'm not really hearing its voice. Okay, if that's so, I'm the Rambam. It's the opposite. The more I'm far from God, the more abominable I think my situation is. Well, my soul's going to need a greater exile. And then I can feel even more compassion for him. And therefore, asim kol magmasi v'chefzi, I'm going to take all my efforts, all my energy, lotzia, to get her out. To extract her, elevate her from this exile, lashiva al-beisavia kin uraha, to restore her, and the Alter Rebbe says this poetically, like to the house of her father in her youth, before she had to come down to this world and deal with all this stuff. Before she came into my body. And she was one with God. Absolutely one with God. And guess what? Now it's going to be the same. She's going to be just as one. When I'm going to put all my effort, the Torah and mitzvahs, in serving God, Torah, the commandments, to take all of my powers and engulf her in all of her 10 divine energies. So what the Rebbe is saying here, we're in the middle of it, but it's rather a long thought. So I'm just going to review what we've said so far. What the Rebbe is saying is, you're feeling bad about yourself. Otherwise, you wouldn't be doing this chapter. Well, we're going in order, but if you're living with a Tanya, you're feeling bad about yourself, and you feel bad because honestly, you thought you were pretty good until you started emotionally breaking yourself, and then you pulled out your magnifying glass, and then you realize you're not so good, and now you feel pretty bad that you're not so good, or far less than you thought you were. The Rebbe says, get over yourself. Or more specifically, let's separate the issues here. Let's separate. Let's understand that there are pieces of us that are not the way we want them to be. But that's not me at my core. Now, this might seem like hard for you to relate to, or maybe not. Maybe it's very natural to relate to, maybe it's very hard to think of the real me is that soul that, but the real you is that soul. That is the real me of every single one of us. Is my soul your soul? No. Is a soul just some word? No. The absolute I, me, what I really am is my soul. In fact, we've all been in this world many times. How many times? I don't know. Generationally, we've been here at least 4 times. We were all here by the Babylonian tower situation. We all came back in Egypt and the Exodus. We all came back as a generation of Reb Shimon Bar Yochai of Meron, and we're all here now. But that's just generationally. There's also our personal journeys. So we've all been here many times. And guess what? All of those times are you. You don't remember them. It's like, I don't know, you open the book in the middle. So you're reading a chapter. You start from the beginning of the chapter. but you skip the first 17 chapters. Sometimes how I read. You skip the first 17 chapters. So you don't really know what came before. You might pick it up as you read, but you don't really know. Well, that's what's going on. We don't know. We don't remember the previous chapters, but they're all our chapters. There's actually interesting proof Lubavitch Rebbe brings for this. Before we go to sleep, there's the Shema prayer. Now, some people say Shema. Some people say Shema in the final prayer, but there's actually a number of prayers we say then. It's a few pages in the prayer book. And in the first prayer that we say to God, very interesting statement if you think about it. I forgive anyone who harmed me in this lifetime or in any previous lifetime. Now, we say it glibly because we're not thinking about it. But if you think about it, the Rebbe says, what are you saying? How can you forgive for another's hurt? Can someone else get hurt? And I'm like, no, I forgive you for hurting so-and-so. I forgive you. Don't worry. You're off the hook for hurting so-and-so. You can only forgive your own hurt. So how do we say every night in our prayers, I forgive anyone that harmed me in this lifetime or in any previous lifetime? Very simply, because all those previous lifetimes are us. They're all us. It's all one continuum. So what's the us? Was I a woman in every lifetime? Not necessarily. Name, appearance, characteristics, culture, intellect, emotions, they can all be completely different. So how is that me? Because it's the same soul. That's the I of the person. That's you. That's what's really you. So when I think about it this way, I'm like, wait a minute. There's a lot of junk in my life. And of course I have to work on it. I'm not like completely just excusing it all away. That might sound like what I'm doing here, but that's not really the point. I'm not doing that as much as saying, let me discriminate. Let me identify. I am a piece of God. No matter what I did, I'm a piece of God. No matter what I haven't done, I'm a piece of God. A Jew who doesn't know they're Jewish. I am sure when we have a complete revelation of Mashiach, there will be tens of thousands of people who suddenly find out they're Jewish, and they never know. And every one of those Jews is a piece of God, and that is the core of their identity. So the Rebbe says, if we, back to basics, focus on the priorities, focus on my existential self, that is of God. But all the other stuff is also real enough to understand that it's harming me, that it's choking me, that it's not allowing me to express who I really am. And if I think about this is me. God invested himself. That's me. A Jew is obviously not creator, but not creation. Creation is all godliness. A Jew's not godliness. A Jew's a piece of God. So God invested a piece of himself in me, and that piece, me, is choking under whatever I'm doing wrong. If I really get that, I have such a desire to free myself. If I'm envisioning it as that poor piece of God stuck that I want to get out, I'm envisioning that as more truly me. I have such a need. It can be palpable, that need to free myself. How do I free myself? Serve God. Invest yourself in what God wants. Whatever you know is that list. Whatever mitzvah it is, whatever Torah it is, that's how you oxygenate yourself. That's how you get yourself out of whatever layers of garbage have covered over you, and you can't hear your own voice anymore. But when you can, it feels really good. So if you think about this person here, suddenly he has drive. He has purpose. He's remembering that in his core, that's him. That's his real him. And that's a great identity. Like there's all these things the Rebbe is doing to shift him to be joyous. Be joyous. You have a purpose. You have a mission. Be joyous. You can do something about your situation. So many times I feel like just stuck. Horrible stuck. You're not stuck. Make a choice. Do something good. Make someone else happy. Do something God wants. You can do anything. There's so many things anyone can do for God. So you're not stuck. You have a mission. You have a focus. You want to free yourself. And you're remembering who you are. All of these things together are shifting the person to feel good.